Okay, I screwed that up. That's all right. We'll get it fixed later. Welcome to the Real Boxing Talk on the Ultimate Sports Network. The engineer didn't know what he was doing, but he'll figure out at some point. All right. We've got a lot to talk about, and we had a lot that just happened in the last few days and a lot that's going on in the future. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello there. Nice to see you guys as always.
Let's start with the bouts that were. Let's start with a couple of what we thought were big ones that maybe weren't big ones, and a little bit of "I told you so" from a couple of people, me not included. Miguel Berchelt and Oscar Valdez. This was touted to be a good fight. I don't know if it was a good fight. It was a great outcome, though. John, why did you think Valdez would win?
Well, I will admit, I'm going to be totally transparent here. The weeks leading up to the fight, I was leaning towards Berchelt, but as it got closer, like the week before, or the few days before when we were talking here, I started thinking to myself, wait a minute, people are underestimating Valdez. It's not like he's a bum. He's never even, why don't I say that word? It's not like he's not that good. He's never even lost in his career. And just because he's a smaller man, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to lose. And then, as I told you guys off air, on the day of the fight, I was convinced, for whatever reason, that Valdez, well, I know what reasons. Watching him being interviewed, looking at it doesn't necessarily always work out this way, but his whole being looked like a guy that he was massively determined. Now, determination doesn't always win you fights, but he had a plan. Eddie Reynoso is such a good trainer. He had a plan. They had been working on it, and I kept thinking to myself, if he puts it all together for this fight, he's going to win. So right before the fight started, I had no doubt he was going to win. And so when he started fast, I went, okay, see, he's showing you. It reminded me a little bit what fighters did to Alexis Arguello as he got older. Alexis Arguello is a great fighter, but if you could move around, you could outbox him, you could outpunch him, you could do other things to him that because Berchelt kind of stands up kind of straight, even though he's the power puncher and the scorpion and all that. Valdez, that is just a prime example of a number of things that I absolutely love. I love it when people show people, look, you were going against me, take that. I love that. And then when a guy is so dedicated and so sold on what he wanted to do, he did it perfectly. He had a little bit of a problem around round 7, but when he found a home for that left hook, which is Berchelt's kryptonite.
Oh, yeah.
Man, and then, of course, the outcome, the ending was one of those boxing brutal moments where you're like, oh, God. And we said off air, when he went down like that, ran into that punch, just like Manny Pacquiao did against Juan Manuel Marquez. He's going forward, and he gets hit, collapses, and then you're like, wow, what am I? And then you're like, whoa, God, I hope he gets up. It was just, but for Oscar Valdez, I was just totally thrilled because here's a guy that was being totally underestimated and I would say disrespected by a lot of people. Yes. His own idol picked him to lose.
Right.
So he could have did an Ali. He could have did like Ali and listened, like we said. He could have got on the rope and went, I told you, but he didn't. He celebrated and then had to wait for Berchelt. But it was just one of those moments as me, I just say as an athlete who loved to prove people wrong with things in my life to watch. So it was like I was living vicariously through Valdez. I was like, man, brother, that's about the coolest thing I've seen to show everyone, kind of like Charles does with Chocolatito. I think he likes it that he's older. And then when he proves these guys, beats these young guys, Charles is like, yeah, you see, don't you underestimate me. I still got something left here. So it's one of those kind of things. It was just a phenomenal moment, and thank God Berchelt's okay.
Yeah. Now, Charles is one of 2/3 of the show that picked this correctly. What did you see going into it that the other third probably didn't see?
Well, part of it was just the more and more I read, the more research I did, it seems like they were a lot more even than people thought. Yeah, well, I mean, I did. Literally, I read more up. I didn't know.
Do research. I don't do any research, so I'm confused by that word.
I like to be informed, Frank. I just don't come out here. I'm not the genius that you are. I literally had to do study. I had to study. My IQ may not be like yours, but I had to really study. Anyway, but
Berchelt got a 212 IQ. That's me.
Well, exactly. But when it comes down to it, it just seems like more and more these guys were more even, and Michelle was like coming in, everybody's giving him all this, all of these accolades and whatnot, rightfully deserved. But then when you look at Valdez, it was like, dude loves chaos, right? That's what they said. Yeah. He loves chaos. He loves the drama and all like this too. And he's going to have to jump out early on Burchell to get him. You got to create some chaos. But then the one thing that really caught my attention is the continuing discussion about both of them having major issues in defense. Yes. So it was like nobody's really a great defender. It's like, if I catch you first, whoever has that momentum can win the fight. And at that point, I'm like, well, hell, Valdez had a hell of a shot, because if I can't play D, you can't play, I'm going to just outscore you, then that means a lot. But I think when it came from that standpoint, that's how I looked. But the one thing that, as we continue to move forward, that really was paramount for me is when Valdez literally started to make things happen, he started to land some punches. And then you saw where, Burchell was he wasn't getting off early. He wasn't, as confident. He wasn't landing as much as he could, which gave Valdez the upper hand. And with that being said, that meant Burchell was fighting from behind.
Yeah.
So that's the chaos we're talking about.
Right.
So now he's in a position where he's trying to come and try to figure this out, even being desperate at times to try to find a way to kind of knock this guy off his momentum. And that's exactly, to me, what Valdez, you coming right into his wheelhouse. And I think that's what he played throughout the whole fight. It's like, I'm up now. I've touched you. I know I can touch you. So now you're desperate that the way that your plan, strategic plan that you would use to beat me is no longer working. Because now I'm ahead and you have to come get it. So guess what? Welcome to my world. Chaos.
Well, and the interesting part about that was, not only did Burchell have to fight from behind, but he wasn't fighting in the first place to the same level that Valdez was. Now, my first take was, and I usually don't put a lot of stock in this, and especially considering I went the opposite direction that you two did, I was like, I really don't care, because I'm right and they're wrong. And then at the weigh-in.
IQ.
Yeah, at the weigh-in, or immediately after the weigh-in, I'm like, okay, this doesn't look good. They couldn't wait for this guy to get back to the room for him to hydrate and get something to eat. I mean, the MGM Grand, that's what, a 10-minute walk?
Yeah.
From the weigh-in to the room, if that.
Yeah.
And they probably, there's nobody there, they probably they could put him in a golf cart and wheeled him to an elevator and got him to someplace to eat or something. They couldn't wait 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes tops, for him to get something to drink and something to eat. I thought, oh my goodness, this isn't a good sign. I don't think I could be wrong. I don't think I've ever seen that where it was right there, right then. It's like, we brought food and water for him, so when he weighs in, we can get him rehydrated on the spot. Wow. I mean, I live closer to the MGM Grand, the Garden Arena. I mean, I can go there and not eat and get back. I mean, it's not that far away. I couldn't believe that. So that was my first thing. And then when they showed them come out, and I went, oh my goodness. And they said that Burchell had gained 16 pounds from one day to the next. Uh-oh. Well, maybe he can carry it. And then the very first half minute of the fight, I went, he looks so slow. Now, Valdez is fast, don't get me wrong. But Burchell looks so slow. I thought, this is going to be ugly. Because, and as you said, his forte is in defense. Well, he couldn't move fast enough to play offense, let alone play defense. And then his kryptonite hit him again and again and again and again and again. Like, even though he was getting busier towards the end of the fight, it was busy out of desperation. I don't think he was still really tagging Valdez much. It was just, I have to do something because I'm tired of getting hit upside the head. And like you said, at the end, okay, I'm moving, I'm trying, and I'm moving forward, and blam! Oh my. Oh my. So now we're looking at Valdez as a player. Now here's the thing: is Charles mentioned that the chaos. What I don't understand or didn't understand, is that he probably hasn't been the underdog. Valdez being the underdog in too many fights in his last 10, 12 fights, and it seems like he kind of relished that.
Oh, he
some
did.
Guys, yeah, some guys like being the underdog. Go ahead, John. It looked like he's like, give me somebody else. I'll be the underdog against him too.
He did, and then there was another thing that two other things that I noticed too is when Burchell was being interviewed before the fight. They asked, "How are you feeling?" And he goes, "Look at my smile. That tells you how I'm." And I'm like, "Buddy, I think you're a little full of yourself here. You think you're going to fight me? I mean, you shouldn't be that cocky that it's going to be, a walk in the park." And then right before the first bell rang, I might have to write about this because I found it fascinating. Again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but the drama of the event was just really getting to me. They showed Burchell, and he's just kind of bouncing, looking at nothing. Valdez he's not even bouncing. He's just in his corner, and he's staring right at Burchell. Yeah, he's not glaring, though, Frank. He's staring at him.
He's just walking.
Like, man,
getting it.
You're talking about knocking me out? I'm going to knock you out. I mean, that's what I was thinking about. So that determination thing, again, yeah, no, I think you're right. Here's a guy, Valdez, who took everything that was said against him, took the underdog status, because every time they asked him about it, he wasn't upset about it. He didn't say, I can't believe they're not. What do they think? I'm undefeated. He didn't say anything like that. He didn't act like he was all hurt. It just made him more determined. Probably made him train harder. Probably made him hang in the gym a little longer. And that's the thing, like Michael Jordan used to say. He used to look for things to make it more determined. He would even make things up to me. And I mean, you guys get that. I mean, you need that little edge in sports. And this was just a prime example of a guy taking everything that was negative and making it his own positive, and then showing you how you could do that, again, with a great plan. And man, did he ever execute.
And it was, Charles, it was something where at what point during the fight do you go, this fight is over? I mean, there's nothing. Is it just me, or is it that one-sided?
It was, I don't know if it was that one-sided, because I mean, you think Burchell was putting in work. So I mean, when I think one-sided him, I think he would have probably knocked him out in the third round, right?
Okay.
So I think Burchell was really putting in work, which made the victory by Valdez even more impressive, because this guy was coming. You know what he's capable of, and you were able to still get it down. Even in, I think it was around the fourth round, Valdez's corner kind of told him, all right, now calm down a little bit, because he still has that ability to knock your ass out. he was like, okay, now look, let's keep doing what we're doing. We're ahead. So no, but I think that's what it even made it more impressive. But I'd probably say maybe about round 4, because you could just see the frustration for Burchell trying to get back in, and Valdez was like, all right. And then at some point you could just see him getting tired, as you mentioned, and Valdez, they're like, go for it, man. He's like, whoop. And he's like, I think he even surprised himself. That's the one thing when he hit him, I was like, he was like, oh shit, what? Oh my goodness.
Girls, just real fast. I think Burchell was more shocked than anything else. I think he was stunned that Valdez was doing this to him. Not just stunned where he was wobbly, just everywhere. That's why he was like, what's going on? This isn't the way it was supposed to be.
Right.
That was the feeling I got too.
Yeah, he just got blitzed, and he was out on his feet a couple of times. I don't care what the referee said. There were a couple of times when he was walking, you're like, those legs are not good. But he recovered. He made it to the corner the one time, and I went, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to find a stool. And he sat down, and they got him back into it. He came back out the next round. I'm not saying he was completely recovered, but he was kind of recovered. So it was something. Now, this was the fight of two guys trying to best each other and to keep that title. We also had a couple of fights actually 2 or 3 fights of people trying to regain that previous standing. So let's go to the Otto Wallen and Dominique Brazil fight. And Charles, did you get a chance to take a look at that one? What did you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at it, I was kind of wondering because the one thing about Brazil, you always look at him, you go, he has the size, right? He has a skill set. You just wonder what guy is going to show up. And I was thinking maybe it's kind of on that curve when you see guys coming back, trying to get back up to the top or close to her. What's their next performance going to be like? And you watched it, and you start watching him, and okay, yeah, looking pretty good. And then you just start getting wailed on. And then it got to a point where you start to see his eyes close, and then it's like this is not good. And it's like, is this? Am I watching a rerun of another fight I saw? I'm not gonna mention the person's name. But it just seems like you start watching a replay of the same thing because some of the same things that he had issues with previous opponents was coming to play here. And Brazil tried. I mean, down the line, he dropped some major haymakers, some major uppercuts. But after a while, you want to come back and go, nah, man, yeah, I'm gonna let you. You got me a couple times, but I'm gonna go ahead and put you where you need to be because it was too late and he simply didn't have it. So Brazil's probably a nice guy, heck of a competitor, but I think his time has come and gone. And this guy, his opponent, kind of showed you that. Like, yeah, it's a hell of a war because you can see both of our faces are really messed up, but skill set wise and where we're at, I'm going one way, and you're going another.
John, did Violent put himself back in the mix, or does this champion or this win really validate him being a top heavyweight again?
Well, he's in the top 10 nowadays. I mean, that's what he is. He's got a good jab. He fights smart. You could even say for a heavyweight, I didn't say this word last week, so I got to get it in, Frank. He was even a little crafty in there against Brazil, right? So not that okay. The thing is that I want to be – Brazil is one of the nicest guys you ever want to talk to, but I totally agree with Charles. I think to be blunt, I think he's done. I hope somebody – he's got 3 kids. You know, he's more than on the back nine. He just walked off the 18th ring. You know, it's over for him. All he's going to do, all they'll do with him is put him in with young heavyweights, because this always happens. He'll get his head knocked off. I don't want to see it. You know, I don't want to see it with the guy. He got knocked out brutally a few times. He hung in for 12 rounds. Violin obviously isn't the hardest hitter, but he's a smart fighter. Got a good jab. The southpaw little southpaw shot was good. But again, Brazil was pretty damn slow a lot of it, and so. But yeah, he's a player, and he'll get a shot. Remember, he gave Tyson Fury a really tough fight, and probably because Fury totally underrated him. But that fight could have been stopped with a cut over Fury's eyes. So Valin he's a player, but you know, our guy is Joseph Parker, who I really like, is fighting this weekend, and if Parker could end up fighting him someday, but he'll probably end up getting a title shot before that. But yeah, I put him in the top 10, Frank, but I don't think he's a threat to Joshua or Tyson Fury again, who'd be ready for him the second time. Let him fight Deontay if he wants to fight somebody. That might be an interesting fight. I don't know if I'm Deontay if I want to fight him just because of that crafty quality that he's got. But yeah, he's there, and like I said, I just hope Dominic Brazil rides off in the sunset now.
Well, and then we also had the return of Robert Easter Jr. How did he look, John?
Good. You know, he's a boxer, and it was more interesting to me watching Ryan Martin's corner because, man, they were really telling him. I don't know if you saw this, Charles, but, man, they were brutal in his corner. They're saying stuff like, what are you doing, man? We trained up for this. He's not doing anything we didn't expect, but you're not doing anything that we were going to do. What's going on? You know, and he kind of go nod and go, yeah. And he was all down on himself because his other try for a shot against, I think it was Josh Taylor, he didn't perform well, so he was looking for redemption, and again he just didn't. I don't know what happened, but Robert Easter, look, he's a good boxer, he's a solid boxer. He fought very smart, did everything his father said to do, and he won an easy decision. It was kind of a boring fight, mostly because it was one-sided. When Martin applied some pressure after they shoot his ear off for a minute, it got a little more interesting, but then he couldn't sustain it. He just do it for a few minutes, and then it was like that. Then he was just back to just kind of following Robert Easter around. And eating jabs. So I don't know. The psychology of boxing is always interesting to me. It's like, here's a guy. Now here's the opposite of a Valdez. Here's a guy trying to prove everybody, look, what happened to me in that other fight was an anomaly. I'm going to show that I'm going to rise to the occasion. Instead, he just fell back and didn't perform. So, that's the thing. You just don't have, you don't always know what's going to happen.
Well, Charles, I mean, Easter Jr. came onto my scene when he beat Richard Comey, who we saw fight last week or week before last.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the loss to Mikey Garcia, when the people that I was around during that fight thought he had it sewn up before the fight, and after the fight, they were not only were they shocked, but they were like, he didn't do what he thought he was supposed to do. Then he goes to Bartolome and he comes up a little bit bigger there. Is he back in the mix? Now, Comey looks like he might be back in the mix. Is he back in the mix, or is it still, maybe?
No, I think he's back in the mix. And I say that because, I'm not going to say he's like all top 3 guys right now, but I think it's paramount to talk about the factor that he's at 140, right? 147 was no place for him. So 140, I think the way that he boxed, he was able to kind of move around, and I think he can get a decent look at maybe some of the champions, or even definitely some other guys in that division, because he's a little older than some of those guys, right? He's a little bit more experienced, and he might be able to pull something off, and he's worthwhile taking a look at. He's worthwhile taking a look at, and he's showing you now that it came back 140. I'm breezing. So let me have somebody, give me a shot. Let me see what I can do. I might make a little money. So with that being said, I think that puts him back in the mix. Then his next fight, if it's against somebody of a little bit more higher caliber, then that's going to decide whether or not he gets the real money. So I'm interested to see what his next step is.
I would like to see, and they have to figure out if they're going to fight it at what weight class. I would like to see him, now that Comey's back, I'd like to see that fight. I think the rematch of that would be pretty decent.
Yeah, I can see that too. I mean, it's all about the money, how it works out. But then if you get another so-called young gun that thinks he's the guy and he can dust this old man off, then that might come up. That might be hard to walk away from, that money.
Right. Now, what we're seeing, I believe, and what I hope we're seeing, coming back from the pandemic and all of this other stuff, is that, and this is the problem I think we have with boxing and sports in general. You're yesterday's news. You had one loss, and we forgot about you. We forgot about Robert Easter Jr. after the Mikey Garcia fight. We forgot about Comey after Teofimo Lopez fight. People are just gone. And you go, well, wait a second. He was just top of the heap 3 months ago or a year and a half ago, and this last year we can discount that because all kinds of crazy things have happened. So before we go into the next one, I'm still on this thought. Are there a few other guys here that we may be, I don't want to say discounting, but maybe they're just there, but they haven't had a chance to fight in the last year? John, can you think of somebody why do we forget about this guy?
Jarrett Hurd. Jarrett Hurd is a guy that we don't even talk about him, and he's a former champ.
Right.
He's lost once.
Yeah.
It's a prime example of someone that he's just kind of disappeared, and it makes no sense why that happens. Junior middleweight, right? So, yeah, he's a prime example. God, I can't think of his name.
Forgot about him already.
Yeah, see, the young guy. Charles mentioned him before. He's only lost one. He's a junior middleweight too. I can't. It starts with an L. Larkin or something like that.
Erslan de Lara.
There he is. Well, he's the older one. I'm thinking of the younger guy.
The younger guy. Yeah. Just fought. Yeah.
Just the way it is in sports, you're right. And I that's a really good topic, Frank. Seems like when years ago you didn't forget about these guys so quickly. I don't know what it is about nowadays. Maybe because we're just overloaded with information and it goes in one ear and out the other. It doesn't stick. Or maybe because we have so many champions in each division, we can't keep track of everybody.
True.
Right? I mean, if you think about, here we go. Here goes the old man reminiscing. You go back to the day when I used to watch baseball in the 70s, and you only had so many teams, and I followed all the statistics, and every Sunday the paper would have all the batting averages, and I'd go through the whole thing. You remember that? Yeah. I loved it. You don't have any of that. You don't have any of that really anymore. I mean, you have the Ring magazine and websites, but it's not really the same thing. I can't really explain it off the top of my head like this, but there's some kind of disconnect now versus back then. But yeah, Jared Hurd, and I know there's guys I'm forgetting, and I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head again right here on the spot. And I'm not. And that's sad that I'm not thinking of anybody. I mean, Sean Porter doesn't get forgot, but he needs to fight again for sure. Ramirez is fighting Josh Taylor. That's good, but he's at 140. People are talking about him. Our guy who we almost got on, but then he went back to New Orleans for a while. The Rougarou. He's somebody that you don't hear people talking too much about, and they should be. I got a little secret on him when we get to the next guy. I think we're going to talk about the Rougarou. You might already know it, but yeah, I just think that's, and especially in boxing, if your team, even the Charlos, I haven't heard anything about them except someone said a certain guy who's the super middleweight champion. Why isn't he, like we said, why isn't he fighting him? Why isn't he fighting Benavidez? That's later on, but I don't know why it just seems like if you're not right now, you just kind of disappear. Maybe because of the pandemic too, Frank. You might be right. The pandemic might have made it a little harder to keep track of what everything that's going on.
Charles, anyone that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, you still there?
Yeah,
I am. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just went woo.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Yeah. Andre, definitely. I think Andre.
Yeah.
We're sitting there waiting on him to fight somebody of significance. I think that's major there. Somebody else too would be. I know he hasn't been there. Maybe he doesn't want to fight anymore. Keith Thurman. I want to see him do something. Either fight or get out. Seriously.
Yeah.
And that's up to him. But fight or get out. Two other guys. Was it Tony Harrison? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fought Charlo.
That's one of the ones I was trying to think of. Tony Harrison. Yeah.
I like to see him because he's so connected to the Charlo fights, right?
Right.
You like to see him. He's kind of like our big fella in the heavyweight. You want to see him connected with somebody else because he's known by that fight or those fights. So you want to see that too. But John, I sent you that link. I tell you what I want to see, and we talked about it. We've been waiting. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe they just blowing smoke. But I got excited when I saw Gary Russell Jr. and to talk about him versus Tank Davis. I would love to see that at 126. I would love to see that. I would love to see that. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, that's possible. Lubin is the guy I was trying to. Yeah, that's the guy that you hear anything about him. He's only lost once.
I still say in the fight just got postponed, Carl Frampton. Just one fight done. But really, he lost one fight, and now that's it. You're done. Okay, how is that possible? So.
Well, he's kind of got a name, Frank, and he lost to Warrington, remember, and he lost to Leo Santa Cruz also. Okay. So and he's getting past it. But that fight, if that ever happens, that should be a good one. He hurt his hand, right? So that's going to get rescheduled. But the Jackal's not done yet. But you're right. I mean, it just seems like people just out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, Austin Trout was just gone, like just done. Like really, or just gone. So, all right. Well, I wanted to get to the half hour mark before we jump to this. This could either be it could be either a 3-minute piece or it could be a 45-day piece. I'm not sure where this goes. Okay. We saw it, you saw it, I saw it, we all saw it. The return or the resurrection or whatever of Adrian Broner. Now, I've said off the air and in my own head, I'm done talking about Adrian Broner. I've said that at least 12 times now. And I will say it for the 18th time next week. But right now, we're going to talk about Adrian Broner. First of all, okay, let me see if I can word this correctly. I had this in mind, what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, but now I'm losing it. Charles, what did you think of the Adrian Broner fight? Let's go that far, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to say that about, and they might think it's biased, but it wasn't a great fight by any means, and we expected him to not to throw any punches, right? His opponent was a lot tougher than what we thought. He showed that he threw a lot more punches clearly by CompuBox numbers, and I get all that too. But when I was watching that fight, one of the things I try to be when I try to be non-biased is unbiased, should I say, watching the effect of the punches, right? And for as much as the punches that the gentleman threw, the opponent threw, a lot of the stuff hit the body, a lot of stuff hit the arms. And I'm like, okay, and I'm watching. And what really bothered me, I'm gonna be real with you, the bias of the announcers. I'm serious. It was like, we don't like him, the hell with him, screw him, he's a F up. And that's all true. I get that. But how is it that you are, and I've never been a judge or anything like that too, but how is it that you're saying a certain person that you don't like, you're biased, you have them down in the fight, losing, right? Then we look at the real scorecards, and I mean, he wasn't great. Broner wasn't great, right? But I think he was a lot better later on than what he has been. That's not saying a lot. I'm not giving him any passes or saying, oh, he's ready to come back and dominate. Not at all. But I think you had to give him a little credit for some of the ways that he fought later in the rounds. And all I'm saying is, to the people, you have the right to your opinion, and you guys are going to disagree with me, and I'm cool with that. But I'm going to just say this. There is no way in hell, to me, if all three judges that have been doing fights for years come up with a unanimous decision, but yet you on the other side saying there's no way, not all were wide, just one person will be wide. But everybody else is like, there's no way Broner won. I'm like, you might want to check your ego or what you're scoring in at the door. Because not usually three professional scorers get that wrong like that, if it's such the case. Which I was like, I know I'm going to catch hell for that, but that's how I saw it.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with you because I don't think everyone has a right to their opinion. They have a right to my opinion. That's all I care about. So. All right,
IQ
John.
Johnson. IQ Johnson.
Well,
John, what did you see?
I saw a close fight. I did. I didn't see 117 to 110. That was mind-boggling. Yeah. But being a boxing guy, I was not surprised by the decision. I was hoping that it could be a draw because, see, I always come down on the unknown guy who comes in. Nobody gives him a chance. Here we go again. Sounds like Rocky. And he fights really well. And how does he get rewarded? He gets an L. Because in a way in boxing, he's fighting a name, and the name is ratings, as we know. I mean, I wrote an article on Broner called "Same Broner, Different Day." That was a headline, and it went through the roof. Typically, Broner, everybody's interested. But my point was more that, and the fact that, again, as Frank always likes to say, accurately, I must say, and you know this is true, Charles. Broner just doesn't throw enough punches. When he starts to throw punches, you go, okay, you could throw some good combinations. Left hook hurt the guy late. He did come on. But see, my difference was, my thing was the other guy won the 12th round when I was watching it. And for me, he won the fight by a point on my scorecard. But I wasn't stunned by the scorecards. I just went, I think that figures. But the interesting thing is I'll release my secret. You guys might know this already, but the talk is Broner's going to fight the Rougarou next, and and he said he's going to F the Rougarou up. No, unless he catches him with that big shot that he cut Sean Porter with, but Rougarou is going to go right after him and start wailing. So I don't know. Like I said, my theory is been this way for a few years. I think we overrated Broner. At 135, he was He was dominating. But you notice as he's moved up, he just doesn't stop anybody anymore. He doesn't knock anybody out anymore. He might knock somebody down. He might hurt him, but he doesn't stop anybody anymore. And he should fight at 140. He said he could have got down to 140. I hope he gets down to 140. He'd probably fight the Rougarou at a catch weight. But it was I was actually kind of pulling for him. I was hoping he'd look good. And then the thing that's frustrating is Brian Custer was trying so hard, so patiently when he was interviewing him. Well, do you think maybe anything that you might want to change? And Broner's like, yeah, I'm going to go change my trunks because there's. It's like, come on, man. I mean, you didn't go out there and dominate. Like, if you had knocked the guy out in the second round, okay. But if someone can't learn, then there's really no. There's just what's that great saying that you repeat history. You're doomed to repeat history, and that's what I think will happen. But again, I think it's not just that. I think he wasn't as good as we all thought in the beginning when people were saying he was the second coming of Floyd Mayweather. Even though I never heard Floyd Mayweather say that, so I always found that very interesting.
Well, this would have been, and I know this is not what the judges do, but this would have been a great object lesson to say, okay, you did what you did against someone that we weren't expecting to be competitive, and you lost. And we could have went back and said, now, Adrian, you can't do this anymore. You actually come out and fight. You can't sit around and do nothing for 8 rounds and then throw a couple of combinations and show flashes of what you can do, which you could have been doing the entire fight. My thing is, he looked like he was in good shape. When he decided to throw, pretty good hand speed. Again, might have been, for the weight he's at, that might be excellent hand speed. I don't know. I have to see him with someone he actually has to fight with. But when he decided to show what he could show, he looked like it could be there. I don't understand why he doesn't do it for an entire fight or for at least half a round.
I don't get
10
it.
seconds here, 10 seconds there. I don't think he won the fight just because he didn't fight the fight. And the guy that came in, Santiago, who wasn't a name, came in and said, I'm not afraid of him. He's not going to hit me. I half expected his corner to say at some point, go get him. He's not going to hit you. He may try and tap you a couple times here and there, but he could hit you, go after him. And maybe that's all he had to go after him with. I don't know. But it's like, go ahead. Let loose. He's not going to fight back. And so to me, it would have been, again, that's not what the judges are there for. And I don't know what they're looking at. And to Charles' point, the announcers gave you this sense of what they saw. This is why I always say, not to disparage the announcers, but always watch the fight twice. Watch it once with the sound on, once with the sound off. Even when you watch the fights that we do, I recommend you watch it one time without us talking about it, because we usually know what we're talking about. But also because you get a sense of how you thought it was going, and then you can put the announcer's voice into your head later. What did you see? What do you know? What do you believe? Because as Charles said, Broner's like, I don't see what you're seeing. Now, like you said, the judge that scored it, 149-12. I don't understand that one at all. I was just like, I don't know what they were watching. I would have went. I don't even know if I went with a draw, but I understand what you're saying, Charles. That he was throwing. The disparity in box count was high, but the disparity in actual punches that mattered probably weren't. So
hard punches. No doubt Broner was landing the harder punches. No doubt about that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's part of that significance. But I'm telling you, I was literally in attendance at De La Hoya versus Mayweather. And people said Oscar De La Hoya, along with one judge, they thought De La Hoya won the fight. Right. I said, are you kidding me? What are you watching?
Still saying that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And the difference is when Mayweather would not fire, it's because he was trying to get you in a situation where he could fire positively. It wasn't that he wasn't firing. He was being strategic about it. I didn't see that with Broner, and I don't see that with Broner. I understand what you're saying. What we're thinking is that he's just laying back waiting for an opening. But when the openings are there, he still doesn't fire. And I think that's the problem that we have with him. It's not that he's just methodical and judicious. He just doesn't go. And if he were to go when it was time to go, because we see it, I don't know why he doesn't see it. And granted, that's a stupid statement to make because he's in the ring and I'm not, so maybe I'm just completely full of it. But there are times in this fight he could have not gone for a knockout, but he said, I can go win this round right now. And he could have anytime he wanted. And he didn't. And that's the part I don't get. That's the part I don't get. Why are you in here if you're not going to try and win? Go ahead, John.
Really fast, what Charles said is absolutely right too. The announcers, even if I don't care if you think the guy's the biggest piece of scum in the world, you don't bring that into the ring while you're announcing a fight. That is, right. I absolutely despise that. Okay, you got a right to dislike the guy, and what they were saying probably was true. I didn't watch it with the sound up because I heard the first round, Charles, and I went, "Oh man, this is not going to be good. I'm not going to let them sway me," and they wouldn't have anyway. But that, as a professional announcer, you don't do that. I mean, I think Howard Cosell started doing that a little in the 70s, and then everybody started doing it. But if you ever watch a fight or listen to a fight by Dan Dumpy, and you can't tell if he's pulling for anybody. He's just telling you what's going on, and that's the way it should be, I think. Mm-hmm. You could hear it in these guys' voices what was going on. Now, Broner got all mad at Steve Farhood because he had the audacity to pick Santiago as the winner, and Farhood is a Hall of Famer. He's a class act. I don't think he lets any of his bias against Broner affect his scoring. As for the other guys announced, it was pretty damn obvious that they feel that Broner is a piece of crap, and I like Al Bernstein's always right on, but even he was kind of falling into it a little bit. It's hard, with that, but I think you have to say to yourself before you start, you have to say, okay, look, we all don't like this guy, but that shouldn't matter. We got to be objective and real fast. If you ever watch any fights from London, that'll drive you absolutely bonkers because those announcers are such homers.
Yeah.
And then when it's like listening to a football game when the homer announcer's announcing and the other team, well, he just threw it over for 8 yards. Oh, he went 20. He's at the 30. He's at the 10. But then when it's his team, he's at the 10. He's at the 5. Come on.
I can't believe that call. That's the worst call in the history of football. Right.
That's right. And that's how they are. That's how they are in London. The guy is the announcer is pulling so much for his guy. I mean, you could hear it during the Warrington fight. I mean, he was so stunned and disappointed and shocked, hurt. It's like, come on, buddy. I mean, you're a pretty good announcer, but that's not how it's supposed to be. And then the judging in England is, even Eddie Hearn said, look, we're not going to be able to get anybody to even come out here anymore. You can't get a fair deal. So it's a mess.
I'm with you. Can I throw one thing in, Frank?
Sure, yeah. 2 or 3
my thing. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. I think my thing is this though. And I go back to however the promoters, whoever it is, and you're right, Brian Custer tried to clean it up and make it as beautiful as he could with Broner. Well, Broner is who Broner is, and we know that. And some of it is an act, some of it he just don't give a damn, but he knows he can get away with it. And I think that if they weren't continuing to come to him with opportunities and whatnot, he might change. I ain't saying he changed his tune. We probably wouldn't fight anymore. But he feels that he has carte blanche to kind of do whatever, and he says whatever. Some of the stuff you kind of go like, are you just saying that so you can rile more people up, or are you going to ever come in with some real sense? And it just depends on what that is. And once he knows his check is clear, like the one thing he said, which I thought was crazy, but it made a lot of sense, and you can see why he was acting the way that he was to a point. Not saying you excuse it, but he's like, I got over this, and he won the fight. And then he says, man, I came in this damn thing, I had $13 in my pocket. $13. Now, that might have been overkill or been over-exaggeration, but now he said, I got so many millions right now. And for somebody like that, it's like, I just got over it. I can continue to mess up, do whatever else I'm doing, act a damn fool, and get paid.
Right.
So why should I change my behavior? You're rewarding my bad behavior.
Right.
And I think that's what it was. When you tell that $13 to whatever, maybe even with the over-exaggeration, he's feeling really good because now he has money again. And first thing he said, we're gonna go back to the gym. We tried to clean it up. Well, we're gonna get back in the gym, but tonight we popping bottles and it's the same stuff again. Right?
Well, Well, if you know, the analogy is if you have a kid and you're taking to the grocery store and they want Fruit Loops and you say no Fruit Loops and they fall on the floor, you yell and scream and they end up getting Fruit Loops. Guess what they're going to do the next time they want Fruit Loops? You know, you're going to pay me. This is what worked, and you're going to condone that behavior. Okay. So yeah, I don't blame him for it. I blame them for giving him 6 or 7 more chances. You know, or winning this fight when, again, in my opinion, didn't win the fight, but I understand them making the decision. I get that part. But to me, I'm not a judge, so I don't know the way they judge things. I would have judged it based on what I think a judge should look at. If you don't fight, you don't win. To me, that's it.
Right. I mean, I'm with you, but I guess my thing, though, is, I mean, judges have been bad, right? We've seen some stuff you go, oh, my God. But when you get 3 judges that are like, it was a unanimous decision, you mean to tell me what everybody else saw, not one of those, and I can even go with the draw. I would have been cool with that. But you mean to tell me not one judge out of 3 said the other guy won? The other part of that, too, for me is, and maybe he's just being a nice guy, even the opponent said he didn't think he won.
Sure.
So, I mean,
what? Right. Well,
if the man that fought said he didn't think he won, what the hell do you want? I mean, what you supposed to do with that?
Well, it's how it's judged. Now, I'll give you, Charles, I don't know if you were at that game or not. I brought my basketball team down to Columbus, and we were getting blown out. And every time the other team made a dribble or made a crossover, it was a complete carry of the basketball. Every time. And I finally, got on the official, I'm like, you're carrying every time. They're carrying every time. It's like, not from where I'm looking, like, I don't know what you're seeing. It's like, they're not carrying. Like, they said they're not gaining an advantage. Like, look at the scoreboard. They're up by 28. Of course they're gaining an advantage. But what he said was, and the point he was making was, down here, this is a legal dribble. This is the way our commission has taught us to call a game. That's a legal dribble here. Where you're from, you may think it's completely different, but where we're from, this is how we judge the game. So that's how they judge the fight. I have no argument with that. If I were judging, it would have been different. That's all. But if that's the way they judge a fight, and they see what they see, that's cool. Like you said, all three of them saw it, so that means something.
I was just going to say it's comparable in a way to when Lomachenko fought Teofimo Lopez. Lomachenko didn't do anything for 6 or 7 rounds, right? He really didn't. He threw a few punches, but he didn't win any rounds. He rallied at the end and lost the 12th, but he lost the fight. Now, did Lopez dominate? No, but he was more active. See, that's the thing. So you're to your point, Charles. How did 3 judges see it for Broner like that? There's actually only 2 answers that I could come up with, and they're not good. They're blind, or 3. They're blind. We're all wrong, or the famous one that people like to throw out all the time. It's corrupt. Everybody knows it. They were told beforehand, there's no way in the world you let Broner lose because he makes us money. He has ratings. So you give him, if you have an iffy round, you give it to Broner.
You know what, John? I can accept that. I'm serious. I can accept that. So therefore, it makes sense. I can accept that. So if it is corrupt and that's what they did and other people are right or whatever, I'm good with that. But none of that has been brought up. They won't say that. I would accept that wholeheartedly. If they say, you know what, we need to make sure because our ratings are up when he's on. People are hating, and he's entertainment for a lot of people. Love him or hating, but yeah, I would love that. So I could accept the corrupt part, but y'all need to hear that.
Well, yeah, they can never admit it. They could never admit it, but that is the talk. And again, back to Teofimo and Lomachenko. Lomachenko was the one who said that the judges were in Teofimo's pocket, remember? And he got ripped up the you-know-what. And I think he was wrong to say that anyway. He sounded like a baby, like a diva. Right. But I took it, back to what Santiago not saying anything, I took it that he was like, look, I don't want to burn any bridges here. This is how I took it. I think privately he probably thought he won. He's like, look, this was the most money I've ever made in my career. I might have impressed some people. I'm not going to come on here and be a big baby. I'm not Broner. I'm not going to point fingers. I'm just going to say, yeah, maybe I didn't do enough. Thank you for the opportunity. And thinking to himself, man, I'll get another fight. I'm going to get another fight. So he might have been being pragmatic about it.
I'm good with that.
I'm going to put another spin on it that gets it a little bit out of the controversial way of looking at it. You mentioned Teofimo and Lomachenko.
Mm-hmm.
He's a name. They're both names, but they're both names. So
this is true.
When in doubt, you're going to give. Okay, you're not going to screw one over the other because he's a name. If you actually thought that he won, that's one thing.
The A side and the B side.
Right. On the other side of this, you have Broner against some guy who we still don't know his name apparently because we can't seem to get it right. Okay. He's not going to get the benefit of the doubt. And if he doesn't go out and dominate the fight, and Charles has said that and I said it too, he did not dominate the fight. He was the more active fighter. There's a difference. He was the more active fighter. Didn't mean he dominated the fight. He's not going to get the decision, even if it's not someone in someone else's pocket. Just because you're going to go, he's got to do, in order to beat the man, you've got to beat the man. Or to beat the man, or whatever the quote is. But yeah.
That's the champion thing too. You've got to beat the champion to win the title.
Right. I agree with you, but I
have to be able to beat the name. I'm sorry, Charles. I talked to her. What were you saying?
No, I said, but I think John hit it on point, and it comes back to your point about your basketball reference. That if you see what's going on and coming in, because you got to know. I mean, like you said, this guy had, 13, 14 fights. Nobody said he had fought anybody of Broner's caliber. You got to know deep down inside that you're probably not going to get the decision, right? We kind of know that. If it's close, you're not going to get the decision. So therefore, why didn't his corner say, we need to come out here and just start whooping this? We need to be dominant. And the same way, too, you mentioned about basketball. I received what you said about, what they were doing. But I'm like, me, that's not even going to be an issue because we're going to get up in them. We're going to come out more aggressive. We're going to start wearing their butts off. We want to see how they handle the pressure. And therefore, I think the same way, too. Let's make it to a point with the performance of this boxer that if he start welling on Broner's head, cuts him up, let's make it to a point where there is no way in hell the judges, even though they may be corrupt, can give this decision to Broner. And I think that's what you have to think about. Sometimes you got to take things in your hand and just whoop your butt. I mean, let's be real. We talk about that Ali Spinks thing. There's no way in hell you think Spinks gonna get a decision over Ali. The great Ali. But you got to come out.
Yeah, that was actually good. See, that's good because Spinks won that fight. I mean, I remember thinking he won the fight. I remember when it was over, I took it and watched it again. I remember thinking Spinks likely won the fight. Thing is even though we can rationalize this, it's wrong. Yeah. Right. That's what drives me crazy. Right? It's wrong. Go ahead, Frank.
Let's say Leon Spinks didn't win a gold medal. That's just a few short years before that. Let's say Leon Spinks was Leon Johnson instead of Leon Spinks. Does he get that decision? If that's Joe Bugner, for example, does he get that decision? If that's Chuck Wepner, does he get that decision?
See, that's a good question. See, my thing, though, is, Frank, even after the fight, I didn't think he was going to get that decision. I'm telling you.
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah, well, I didn't either. Yeah. I agree. I didn't either. I was dumbfounded. Like, I remember when Ali fought Jimmy Young. It was the same kind of thing. Ali fought Jimmy Young. Jimmy Young, was a cutie pie in there and actually very underrated. Beat George Foreman. We know the story about Jimmy Young. I thought Ali lost. Ali looked heavy and sluggish, and Jimmy Young, of course, his style makes you look that way. Right. But Ali got the decision, and I went. And that was that old adage: you got to beat the champion to win the title. You shouldn't have to beat some guy like a non-champion, though, even if he's the name. That's what really bothers me. Like Lara and Warrington. See, I remember hearing that Lara. See, just what you said, Frank. Here's a good segue. You love segues. Lara's team was saying to him before the fight, "You got to knock this guy out. There's no way in the world we'll get the decision." And they're right. There's no way. If Warrington had hung around, he probably would have got the decision in England anyway.
Sure.
But he did it. I think Santiago, though, to your point, I think he was trying. I just don't think he hits hard enough.
Yeah.
He hits hard. So he knocked guy out. But, yeah, he was peppering him. But where Broner was like, Broner's got a really good chin. Everybody knows that. He's not going to get – the only guy that got him was, what's his name? Mario. I can't think of his name, right? He's a tough guy.
Marcus
But yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I wish they would change that thinking about, because I hate it for the guy that rises to the occasion and then he goes home with a loss. That bothers me.
But okay, going back to the Jimmy Young thing, he just wasn't out of the Olympics, and questioned whether they're going to put him on a Wheaties box. So Leon Spinks was still a guy. He was still a name, even though he wasn't Ali. So there's that. Then you look at someone like a Glenn Johnson, who wasn't going to get a decision against anybody no matter what, because he wasn't the guy that they wanted to see with the belt. Now, not to say that they shortchanged him, but he wasn't the guy you wanted to see prance around, doing commercials, being in Rocky movies or any of that stuff. That's not that guy. So he's not the name. So he's not going to get that close decision, whether he deserves it or not. And that's right or wrong, good or bad. That's just the way it is. If you're looking at the fight and you're looking at it apples to apples, you vote for the guy who won the fight. Unfortunately, in your head, you're thinking, I'm sorry, Glenn Johnson, Roy Jones Jr. I think he must have fought better because that's who he is. That's the way it works. But if you were a name equal to that or close to it, it's a psychology thing. It's not right or wrong. It's just that's the way I see that it happens. I don't like it.
It's a human thing, and real fast, because I want you all to say something about this too real quick. It's like the Oscars. If you ever happen to watch an acting category and you watch 5 of the performances, you have an opinion who won. But a lot of times the guy who gave the best performance doesn't win. It's the guy who's the most popular. It's the guy who did the most politics. And it's the same thing. That's dead wrong. It should be on his acting ability, not on all the other crap.
Who was in a great movie 3 years ago and didn't get nominated, and then now you're making up for this one, right? Go ahead, Charles.
The makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know that we don't want to talk about Oscars because you know how African Americans feel about the Oscars. Anyway,
Yes.
I'm gonna leave that right there. But but the poster boy for what you're talking about, as far as not getting decisions, to me is Juan Manuel Marquez.
Sure.
Because we went back and forth, Frank and I, for years, why he couldn't get a decision. We said he would never get a decision against Pacquiao, and it held true to the truth. That was the truth.
To this
He
day.
literally had to knock him out. He even changed the way he went into the fight. Like, okay, I'm going to be first. I'm going to be more a counterpuncher. I want to beat Pacquiao at his own game. He could not get that decision. But until he knocked his butt out, then he finally got it. And it was not anything to do with the judges, because I think Pacquiao was the guy who was coming. Everybody, he was the sexy guy, right? Out of the two. And he was the guy that was building up his reputation and the name. So, yeah, I think about Juan Manuel Marquez when I think about that type of situation.
And see, I'll flip it around the other way, but there's also a caveat to that. We were talking about Pacquiao, and segue. We're talking about Pacquiao, and you say, all right, Frank, well, you're making all kinds of sense, and everyone's making sense. Then how did he lose to Jeff Horn?
Because of where it was.
That was the caveat, right? Because of where it was, right? If that fight had been fought in Manila, or that fight had been fought in London, Jeff Horn doesn't stand a chance.
Las Vegas.
Is that right or wrong? That's wrong as well. It shouldn't have anything to do with where you were, what you did. That's why and I'm going to get the Maloney, the wrong Maloney, I'm sure, is Jason Maloney that just had the fight with the in the bubble
Franco?
Yes, thank you. And they said, well, we should fight this in Australia. Yeah, that proves a lot right there. Sure.
That's a makeup.
Yeah, it is. Well,
There's no way he's going to lose.
There's no way he's going to lose in that. Unless Jeff Horn has left the country, or assassinates the president or something like that, Australians are going to vote for. So it works wrong both ways, and it works wrong for the wrong reasons. Again, and I'm sure if we get Max DeLuca on here, he's going to he's going to say that never comes into our decision making. You're right. It doesn't come in your decision making, but it doesn't mean it's not already in your head.
Right. Exactly.
Did it not? Come on now. Did you not think I did? The fix was in with the Jeff Horn thing in Pacquiao. Let's be real. Even the announcers. Oh, he's being bloody. He's so cut up. Look what he's done to Pacquiao. He was cutting with his elbows. What fight are you watching?
I know.
If you're cutting the guy across his eye, I mean, with elbows, and then you go, look at him, he's bleeding because you're using his elbows. And then they go into, well, you know, he just, and Pacquiao accepted it too. But then the truth of it comes out is when Horn comes over here and gets pummeled. Got destroyed. Where's he at now? Is he still fighting? Yeah. Where's he at training?
Yeah, Teddy Atlas went pretty bonkers with that position. And so I think, if I remember correctly, Bradley did too. But I certainly remember Teddy Atlas going, "Oh, come on,
Teddy." That got Teddy fired or put him on the back burner.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh,
Now I did an unbeknownst to anyone, and this isn't gonna be a segue. I'm tired of talking about that. I did something that resembled research, and as I'm watching the bottom line crawl,
like in
the last 3 minutes, it's not like I really looked at it.
300 IQ, some research.
No, 212. 212. As I'm watching, if I'm watching and no one's mentioned how cool the bottom line crawl looks here. I think that's pretty sweet. Anyway, as I'm watching that crawl across there, something came to my attention. All right, I was about ready to say, let's talk about the Canelo, and you pronounce his name for me because I'm going to screw it up. But then as I was looking at it, I realized also on the same night, Anthony Durrell gets a fight. Now, someone explain this one to me, because I'm not quite sure I understand this. How did Anthony Durrell beat Yildirim? I'm going to mess up his name. And Yildirim gets to fight with Canelo. And Anthony Durrell has to fight, I don't even remember his name, and I just looked at it. It should come across a second here. He's fighting Kyrone Davis. How does that work out? I'm not sure I understand how that plays out. How do you beat the guy, and he gets the fight for the championship, and you lost to Benavidez, okay, but you don't get a fight. You don't get a shot. I'm kind of worried. I don't understand it. Or, better way of looking at it, why doesn't Benavidez get the shot at Canelo? What's happening here? John, explain this one to me.
You just hit the nail on the head, Frank. Benavidez should be getting the fight. Neither the guy that we can't pronounce his name or Durrell, who got beat, before, should be getting the shot. It should be Benavidez. And Benavidez was ready to take it. But Canelo said, I'm not fighting another Mexican. I'm not fighting a fellow Mexican. And since Canelo is the god of boxing right now, he can pretty much dictate it. It's true. He is. He's the god of boxing. He can pretty much say, this is who I'm fighting next, and they're going to go, okay. I can't really explain the whole thing, how this guy with a name, we'll just say the fighter with the no name, how he got the fight. I read it, but it went in one ear and out the other because I thought it was such crap that I'm not even going to mention it when I watch the fight because I think it's just gobbledygook. Right. But he got the fight. This guy got blown out by Chris Eubank in 3 rounds. It's a show me fight, a showcase fight for Canelo, and then Billy Joe Saunders. That ought to be a good one. But of course, I was saying the same thing about Josh Warrington a few weeks ago.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I have to be kind of careful here. That's the thing about it. And I thought about this when I was watching Valdez. I meant to say, boxing is such a game of just like this. Burchell threw a couple of right hands that Valdez just moved away from. And that was like in the 7th or 8th round. If he had hit him right on the chin, we might be talking a different story right now about that fight. So as much as Canelo, I think my headline for that one is Mission Impossible. As much as Canelo is the big favorite, huge. I mean, we're talking 50-1, perhaps. Anything can happen in sports, as we know. But I just wish Canelo's pretty much, as I said, Canelo's dictating. Now he's even talking, Golovkin's about 60 years old now. I think maybe we'll fight him again this year. So that's how you talk, Frank. So that was a homage to Frank, who always puts everybody over. He makes me younger, though.
The winner of the fight gets new tennis balls on his walker, I think. Charles, explain to me. Now, let me refute one thing. Benavidez is from Arizona. He's not from Mexico, so that doesn't hold water.
But he's Mexican.
He's Mexican, but he's born and raised and lives in Phoenix. So that's bullcrap. But not your bullcrap. That's his bullcrap.
That's what he said.
We had one of the ring announcers whose name just jumped out of my head, Valdez, a few months ago, and he's grown up around Benavidez, and he said, this kid is from Arizona. He's New Mexico. He's there. He's not one of these guys. Anyway, I'm trying to figure this out, Charles. And explain to me the way this is supposed to work. If you're ducking, supposedly, and I'm not saying he is, the Charlos or this or that, then you take a fight with someone who you should be able to. You're saying you have earned the right to fight me. Now, Yildirim has lost 2 fights. As we said, to it just dropped out of my head. John, you just said it. I'm sorry.
Oh, Chris Eubank and
yeah,
and Durrell.
And Durrell, right? Okay. Benavidez beat Durrell. Durrell beat Yildirim. Okay. Benavidez is fighting in a couple of weeks against someone who I don't know who it is. Ronald Ellis. Okay. I'm trying to read the bottom line. It's going, go faster, go faster. Durrell is facing someone tomorrow, or Saturday, I'm sorry, that isn't the caliber of the guy he just beat or the guy he lost to. So why aren't these guys in the mix? And these are names that are never even mentioned or hardly ever mentioned. What's going on, Charles? There's a question there someplace.
Well, I think part of it is John hit it right on the nail. When you hit it right on the nail, hit the nail on the head. When you are the king or the god of boxing, as you say, you can fight who the hell you want to. I mean, and nobody can say anything. You hear us and other people saying, why wouldn't you fight this? Because we know what those mandatories are. We know what the non-mandatories are. We know who's available, who's going to give you a fight, right? And Canelo being a free agent, the master of his own domain, he can say on this day, I'm fighting this guy, I want to fight this guy. And the guys he's fighting all are going to say yes. The one exception though to it was what is it? Was it Caleb? Is that Caleb? The guy that says that he got offered to fight, but they wanted to do it real quick.
Plant. Yeah, that's later in the year. They're going to fight later in the year.
Right, Plant. Yeah, but he says he tried to trick you. He said, look, he want to make it where you can't win. So he want to put you in a 6-week training camp.
Right.
He said, nobody doing that. He says, because I'm fighting a great champion, one of the greatest of all time. Why would I do that just for an opportunity? So to answer your question, I think it comes down to who's in charge. Canelo is the man. He's sitting at the top. He's the king. And he's his own promoter. He's independent. He's not connected to anybody. He decides what network he wants to work with. So therefore, he's like, I'm going to go to 168. I might go to 175. I don't come back to 168. I'll go back to 175. And I don't have to fight anybody. I'll fight who the hell I want to fight. And as much as we may not like it and others may criticize him for it, he just smiles because his fan base is so loyal. He's going to get a check. They're going to follow it. So that's answering your question. So what we just deem to be people to be worthy of opportunities with him, he's like, that's not my problem. And he's showing you that. But again, Floyd Mayweather was horrible for what he did, right? Anyway, I digress.
It's his birthday. It's Floyd's birthday, Charles, so that's okay. You can say something.
Okay.
And the name that dropped out of my head, and I apologize if he's paying attention, Ralph Velez Jr. was the ring announcer who grew up around Benavidez, and I just completely blanked him. Sorry, Ralph, because Ralph's a good guy. When we're looking at the future, I guess, and as we see some of these fights that are going across the bottom line here, we've got a lot of nice stuff coming up. But I think that the thing is we don't have them matched against some of the people they should be matched against. So of what we have, John, coming up in the next, let's call it the next 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. Let's get to the summer. Guys that are looking or just completed a fight. Who should be looking at somebody else other than, because it looks like we're playing it safe right now. which I can understand coming out of the pandemic, or if we're out of the pandemic, of playing it safe and not going after anybody. But what's a good match that maybe we haven't talked about? And let's not get into the big names, as kind of like we were talking about earlier, people we kind of forgot about. What are a couple of good names we go, this guy should be with that guy?
Well, again, I'm stuck on Jared Hurd because I think he's being disrespected, and then I'm not hearing anything about the Charlo. So put Charlo and Hurd together and let them rumble for 12 rounds. That would be a hell of a fight, but it's not going to happen. He's a big name. Teofimo Lopez is a big name, but he doesn't know who he's fighting next. So that's kind of, and he's got Ryan Garcia and he's got Devin Haney are just chomping at the bit to fight him.
Right.
It's boxing. As far as the recent future or the coming future is more based on the smaller guys. You know, we haven't heard anything from Gervonta Davis in a while. We did hear about a rumor about him wanting to fight Gary Russell Jr., which, of course, Charles and I absolutely love that. We thought that was great. I did mean to say, too, that Oscar Valdez said that he heard that Stevenson said that he wanted to fight, and Valdez said, okay,
bring it on. Yeah,
I'm ready.
Like,
holy moly, I don't know if you're ready for that, man. I don't know if you're ready for that. But I admire him for saying, okay, I'm ready. So it's muddled right now, Frank. You know, the summertime, usually by now, since it's late February, we'd have a big summer fight we were looking forward to. But, you know, the pandemic has really messed it up. We still don't have a date for Joshua and Fury. They keep saying that they've signed the contracts, but that's looking like the fall. We got the summer, the big one really, and it's not really even considered that big, is Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, one that I've been looking forward to. Probably end up being a boring 12-rounder. Where Canelo's another guy that doesn't lose decisions, so right. And Billy Joe doesn't knock anybody out. So we might be saying the same thing here in a number of months where, well, Billy Joe outlanded him 142-65, and he still lost the decision, you know, and we're like, right. Remember what we were talking about a few months ago? Who's the A guy and all this? So really, unfortunately, nothing really is jumping out. I mean, the big fight coming up in a few weeks, though, Frank, you know who this is. Charles's main guy, Chocolatito, fighting Estrada in a rematch. Chocolatito won the first one a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. Got to write about this. That's a big one, but that's going to fly under the radar. We know that. It's flying under the radar right below us right now. So we got to talk about that one, but if I was to try to think of a biggie coming up, you know what really intrigued me? This is talk about digressing, but I got to throw this in because you know you guys know I really like this guy because he was so much fun to talk to when I used to go and see him at the gym. They asked Andre Ward about Canelo. Ta-da! Now Andre just turned 37, right? So it's not like he's an old man, but he hadn't fought for. Like I can't believe it's been 4 years now since it's 5 years. He said, I feel like, of course, that I could beat him. Even now. And I couldn't help and think, man, oh man. And now Canelo is up in his weight, 168. Right. And I was thinking, it's too bad Andre's not fighting now because that would have been one intriguing fight. But, of course, I was never a fool to go against Andre Ward. He had that Oscar Valdez determination. I will say it right here, and you can call me biased. Charles was saying be accused of bias with with Adrian Broner. I'll be accused of being biased with Andre Ward. Andre Ward would have beat Canelo. He would have beat him.
Can he still beat him if they
I think he could still. I don't know about still beat him. But I know it would be competitive because there's no way he'd allow it not to be. So there. I'm done digressing.
Okay, Charles, I noticed you, and you still are taking some notes. So what...
The professor down there. Uh-oh.
Enlighten us, please.
Yeah,
or should I vamp for a second?
Right, no, it's to that point where so much is going on. Stuff like, for instance, Lubin versus Harrison, man.
Good one.
Yeah, I would love to see that because these are two guys that are trying to come up. I know Lubin continues to say that he wants Charlo as far as a rematch is concerned, but Lubin versus Harrison will be dynamite.
That would be nice.
Yeah, and I think you get it to the point where the next guy gets the shot, right? The next guy gets the shot. So that there. Um, Lomachenko versus anybody, for real. I mean, so Haney, you say you ready? Let's bring Haney in there. Let Devin Haney get a little taste, and let's see if Lomachenko still has it. I love to see that fight, and if Haney loses, he's still young enough to recoup, and then we find out whether or not Lomachenko is still good enough. Because I know everybody wants to run to him because they think he's easy pickings right now. But I love to see that.
What I think, and I not to cut you off, what I think is interesting about this is when we were talking Lomachenko a few months ago, we discounted 80% of the people that would want to fight him. Because you have to prove that you are on this guy's level. And now he's in play for almost everybody. It's so neat. It's so interesting. Now we're going to see, A, how good he is, or was, or whatever, and B, how good the people that have been yapping their mouths about him are. Because now he has to take a fight, to your point. Yeah. He's against anybody or everybody. Nice. That's a nice call. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. No problem. Also, too, I'm looking at, they said it earlier, and I know we talked about the other fight, but I want to see Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Ryan, you've been talking a lot. You're young. You won a little fight and telling everybody how great you are. And Golden Boy knows how it's going. And they're a little nervous too. They're being very careful how they put you out there. But you're running your mouth. So you want to run your mouth, let him fight Tank Davis. I just say let's put him in his place one way or another, and we find out where you are. And now you're even talking about opportunity to fight Pacquiao. But yeah, let's let him in there.
Not talking about it no more.
Right. And for good reason. But let's go with Tank Davis. The other one too, which one I don't think will be bad, would be Hurd and Andre. I think something like that would be nice too.
And Harrison in a rematch against the guy who beat him, who shocked him and knocked him out in the fifth round.
Right.
The guy that Charlo beat. That would be rematch those guys. That was a hell of a 5-round war.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're looking at too. So I'm looking at stuff like that too. But I also really want to see where this is one, and this probably be my last one. We get off of it. Nobody's gonna watch it. You can put it on USA Network. Is that still even a network? You can put Lifetime. But the title would be the men versus the men from down the depths of hell fighting one another. Nobody cares. I want to see my boy Luis Ortiz versus Ruiz. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yes. I would pay pay-per-view money to see that. I'll probably be the only one, but I want to see that fight.
No, you would.
I'd watch that.
Because they have nothing to lose. Neither one of them. Nothing.
See, now, that's a great point, Charles, because Ruiz is a guy that we are not talking about anymore. This is a guy that was a heavyweight champion for a few months. He gets beat in a rematch, and now he's not even sure who's training him. I can't even tell you. I think he's with Eddie Reynoso. I think that would be very smart if he is. I'm not sure. He might have worked out with him, and then you didn't sign him. But no, that's a great call. Ruiz and Ortiz. He might be 50 years old.
Doesn't matter.
Charles made a great point a long time ago about Ortiz. He's been knocked out twice by Deontay. You don't see guys line it up that want to fight him. And as I said a few weeks ago, Dillian White, when he said, "Okay, anybody wants to fight me because I'm ready to go," and Ortiz said, "I'm here. I'll come out to London and fight you," and suddenly everything went quiet.
I'll go fight Povetkin again. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's very interesting.
I want to see, and I don't have a particular matchup, but I want to see two guys get back on the horse, so to speak. I want to see where we go with Mikey Garcia. Does he jump back or go back down? And can he find something to be relevant down a weight class or two where it probably should be? I want to see the new and improved or whatever we're going to see from Leo Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Because I think he jumped.
I was just thinking him. Yeah.
I think he jumped up a little bit higher than he should have been. A couple of guys that need to go back to the weight class where they should be. Those are the two main ones I'm thinking of. But Jason Rosario, where do we go with him? Is that something? Is that maybe a Tony Harrison fight? There are a lot of things in that
Yeah.
area that we could
Yeah.
have. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways we can go. I don't want to call it the losers bracket, but for lack of a better way of putting it, that's about it. Just because you got a shot and you didn't capitalize doesn't mean you're done. And we can see a lot of that's what we see with the welterweights. Okay, well, we're going to bring Thurman, we're going to bring Porter, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. There are a lot of guys out there that just had that one loss or that one major loss that still are relative, and they could be out there. I want to see somebody like that. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at you mentioned Dillian White, Povetkin, or Joshua Parker. Do they get back in the mix? And I know that White and Povetkin are fighting each other, and Parker's fighting, I think, in New Zealand or something in a few weeks.
Yeah, he's in New Zealand.
But it's can they get back in the mix? Because again, we're looking at Fury says he's going to fight a couple more times and he's done. You got Wilder who, by that point, is going to be hanging out with Oliver McCall. No offense to Oliver McCall, it's just the only thing I can think of. I know. That was a low blow. Sorry about that. That was a glotta. Sorry about that. I know I did it again. But you look at it and say, I got a 212 IQ. What am I supposed to do? And anyone believes that, I got some swamp water here in Vegas you can buy. But the idea being that there are a lot of things out there, a lot of guys that have been out there that are still out there. And I think, Charles said it perfect. Tony Harrison came out of nowhere, proved he should have been there. And now he's gone. Why is he gone? There are a lot of guys you go, why are these guys gone? They should.
Well, Frank, how about the Monster? We haven't heard anything about the Monster in a while,
Sure.
right? I mean, where's the Monster at? Wait, he's fighting King Kong, Godzilla and King Kong coming out in a few months. I mean, he's not fighting anybody right now. Where's the Monster? I want him to fight.
Who's there for him to fight, though?
Yeah, well, he can move up. Let him move up.
Okay.
And take on somebody. I'm sure he can. Hell, they were talking about him moving up to 126 and fighting Lomachenko a few years ago. So it's not obviously happening anymore, but let him move up. He's exciting as hell to watch. Let him fight. Dang it! This is when you get old. God, he fought him already, and it was a thrilling 12-rounder. They could fight again. He's old now. He lives out in Vegas. Dang it! I can't think of his name.
Anyway.
No, in a way against this guy. They could fight again. But huh? Denier, yeah, thank you. Denier, yeah. Let Denier and him fight again. That would be a hell of a fight. I don't know if Denier's 36. Right. Yeah, if he wants it again. But the light heavyweights, we didn't mention them. Beterbiev is great to watch. Joe Smith was going to fight for the light heavyweight title. Dimitri Bivol, let him fight Beterbiev. That would be a hell of a fight. So yeah, it's just that I'm not thinking those aren't popping in my head because I don't hear anything about that. That might be what I want, but unfortunately, there should be something happening. But as we've talked on this show so many times, the matchmaking leaves a lot of questions.
Well, the thing, Charles, and correct me if I'm wrong. Here's what I see. Well, you're gonna correct me whether I'm wrong or not. Anyway, but here's what I see happening that I don't like. Is that you have, and John just hit on it, you have 4 divisions or 4 classes or whatever you want to call them, WBA, WBC, WBO, IBF. And IBO, they're like another 6 or 7 minor ones. Why don't we see, and it be broadcast out there, the number 4 guy against the number 7 guy? Isn't that a good fight?
It's a great fight. I mean,
so it's we either see the champ against the number 2 guy or the mandatory, and then nothing. Yeah. Or the number 3 from the WBA against the number 6 from the WBC. Why doesn't that get made?
Because it will make too much sense, right? It will make too much sense. It would be giving you your money's worth, and plus 2, with them being independent bodies, they can basically do what the hell they want to. So they kind of almost write their own rules. So they don't have to have it make sense. And I think that's what that comes down to. It doesn't have to make sense. So Therefore, they don't make it. When you say a mandatory, it's usually that the one or two, right? Number one, number two, the guy that's right there. But like you said, you don't talk about 4 versus 7 or 6 versus 4. You don't hear that. That's where it would make the undercards, as we said before, really intriguing. Because now it's like, this guy's number 6, he beat the number 4. Now he might get a shot to number 2. That makes too much damn sense. But when you don't have that, and then you have these somewhat promoters that are somewhat prima donnas along with their talent, they get to decide who and when they want to fight. So in order not to lose them, I think that these bodies as well are, along with the promoters, are like, well, we don't want to piss anybody off because he might throw our belt in the trash. And then he runs over here and only keeps these 2. That's what we're seeing too. Belts for a lot of guys that are winning doesn't really mean a lot. They just kind of, oh, well, I give up the belt because I don't want to deal with you guys anymore. And the major bodies don't want to lose top-notch guys. That's just my spot on that.
Well, John, just as we're looking at that, and I think we've kind of covered that enough times, but I still think it's worth talking about. When we look at who's fighting whom, or who the mandatory is against whoever, or however you want to put it, how do we get to the point where we have a fight where we go, okay, let's look at the welterweights. Errol Spence Jr. is the WBC and WBO champ. Yordenis Ugas is the WBA champ. The IBF champion is Errol Spence Jr. Okay, so he's got 3 of the 4 belts. Okay, cool. Why don't we have Spence Ugas? And let's look at the IBF. Who was the number 1 ranked welterweight in the IBF? Anyone?
Manny Pacquiao. I don't know. No, he's got a belt. That's right. Pacquiao's got a belt. He's the WBA champion.
WBA,
isn't he?
Super mythical champion. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who's the IBF? It's got to be ridiculous the way Frank is smiling over there with his 212 IQ. It is. It's not one of. It's Charles.
You're not gonna get it.
I'm not gonna get.
So you're not.
Is it a guy I can't say his name, Frank?
It's a guy you can't say his name. Yeah, it's a guy you can't say
all right.
his name.
Then I give up. I can't say his name.
Abdukakarov.
There you go.
From Uzbekistan. You're going, what?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Where? Who'd he fight?
There you
go. Okay.
Now, wait, say it again. Wait, 147?
Kudratillo Abdukakarov.
Is he the guy? I'm sorry, Charles. Is he the guy that hasn't had a lot of fights? Can you see?
I'm not even going to look that up. I don't know. Because Sean Porter's number 2. Sergey Lipinets is number 3. Kustio Clayton from Canada is number 4. Keito Obara from Japan is number 5. David Evnisian from Armenia, I think we just saw him fight, or he's fighting tomorrow or something like that, is number 6. Ivan Golub from Ukraine is number 7. Maurice Hooker, number 8. Danir Yolesinov is number 9. And Jaron Ennis is number 10. These are the welterweights.
Boots is only number 10?
We have been talking about welterweights for the last 8 months. Only one of those names have we mentioned, and that's Sean Porter. Only one of those names we've mentioned is Sean Porter. Now, either that's an oversight on our part, or something's goofy here.
Did I hear Cato Kalin, Frank? I mean, God, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Jeez.
Hey, I know what. Sean Porter could fight 3 of them dudes on the same night and win. He beat them all.
But okay, let's go back to where I'm at. The WBC. And I'm not going to be long on this, but okay, Sean Porter's number 1, Mikey Garcia number 2, Keith Thurman number 3, Danny Garcia number 4, Virgil Ortiz number 5, Eugidjus Kavalauskas number 6, David Avesnian 7. Then we get to this Kadrula Abdukakarov number 8, Josecito Lopez number 9, and Amir Khan number 10. Was Amir Khan even still fighting?
Why he's number 10 is...
Yeah.
See, this is what I don't get. Okay. I can redo this once a month. I can redo my rankings once a week. how can a governing body still have Amir Khan ranked? What? And then how can there be that much of a disparity when they're the world rankings? Now, if we're looking at the European rankings versus the British rankings versus the Canadian rankings, that's one thing. The world rankings shouldn't be that disparate. Now, should the top 10 be the same in all four of them? No. But it should be maybe 2 or 3 guys. But there was an entire ranking on the IBF of people we've never heard of, other than Sean Porter. Wow. And not to say we're the end-all, be-all experts for everything, but I would think between the 3 of us, we would have, oh, yeah, I know him. You may not have seen him, but I've seen him. Doesn't make sense to me. So, in conclusion, Charles, it looks like you're taking some more notes. So, what else do you have to add to that, Charles?
No, I mean, I think that it's just where you had to. In fact, my notes that I wrote down was to find out who the voters are for the IBF, as far as their board. How do they go about that? I think that tells a lot as to are most of these guys dignitaries from the Middle East. No disrespect to the Middle East.
That's very good.
I just want to know where they are from, and maybe they know something we don't over here in America. So I like to find that out, especially when you have, one guy, Sean Porter, here, and then all of a sudden he's way down here on their rankings. I like to find out who these individuals are and when do they vote, and if they have anybody listening to their sessions.
Well, but you make a good point there, because remember there was a time there between the light heavyweight cruisers and whatever. You had the Marco Hucks and the Miguel Kesslers and this onslaught of guys coming from Germany, from Belgium, from around in there. Then you went, well, I've never heard of these guys. Well, okay. And you come to find out that they're not bad fighters. They're not, they're the guys that are ranked, and so they started getting fights. So I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just wondering where all these guys from Uzbekistan are and who they're fighting and how we're comparing them apples to oranges. I don't get it. And again, as Charles said, it doesn't mean they can't fight. Doesn't mean they're not good. But what's the eye test? What are the metrics? And we said the same thing about the Klitschko's. Well, they can't possibly be. Well, they ran the division for a decade, so it doesn't mean that they can't fight. It just means that how do we make these decisions? What are we comparing? It's like saying, we're doing seeding for the NCAA basketball tournament, and I want to vote in, Butler. Well, that's a bad example because they're out in the Big East. But I want to vote in San Diego State, but they play in the WAC or whatever, but they should be a higher seed than they are because I've seen them play. Or Bradley or Drake or, Northern Arizona or somebody. Well, if you haven't seen them play, you don't know what they compare to. But you're going to take a North Carolina team that's having a bad season and make them a 6 seed and have Northern Arizona be a 10 seed, even though Northern Arizona is a better team. So that's kind of the comparison I'm looking at here. As Charles said, do they know more than we do about these guys? And shouldn't the world bodies all be relatively on the same page, which is, again, why we shouldn't have 18 different belts on the line. So, anyway.
See, Frank, the way I took that real quick, it was like the IBF was saying, okay, we're going to have our own names on that list. We're not going to follow what anybody else is doing. We might have Sean Porter on there because we want to be respected. We got one name where people, but then we're going to have all these other guys that are good fighters, I'm sure, but they're not known because we're the IBF. We're the independent, whatever you want to call it. Even though what they're doing doesn't make sense. Exactly. Right. Doesn't make any sense. They're still going to do it their own way. And real quick on the WBC, they've always been a hit and miss. The WBC is famous for, talk about belts, how we hate how they have so many belts. They create a belt for a specific fight, which drives me absolutely nuts. Mm-hmm. When Golovkin and Canelo were fighting, they made a supreme championship belt. I'm like, so you got to take that into consideration with the WBC also. And there's other things, but Amir Khan is probably just channeling money to keep his name there at number 10. I mean, that's how you used to do. You used to be able to buy a ranking back in the old days. So it back to that point we made, boxing certainly has a feel of something being a little shady.
Right.
we like to say.
It used to bother me when I would try and, on the website, I would put the up-to-date rankings, and then I'd go, okay, who's the champion of this thing? Because this one's got a silver belt, a global belt, of this one, an interim of what? Well, how can you have an interim and a title holder at the same time? So you get to the champion, you have three different, a silver, interim, and a global super. Like, what the hell am I doing here? So I just said, I'm just going to go with whoever they say the champion is or whoever fought somebody. But like Pacquiao is a welterweight champion, but he's not a welterweight champion right now. He's senior AARP champion, or I don't know what the hell it is. So anyway, all right. So since we've been, this is a bad segue because it's not a segue. Will we see an upset with the Canelo fight? I guess that's the best way of looking at it. Since 2/3 of us got the last one right, will does Canelo just dominate this guy whose name I can't pronounce, or does he have a shot?
I don't think he has a shot. I mean, if the guy that we said the last fight was supposed to be pretty decent and he had a great record, and they swore that we had never seen this last opponent, and Canelo went after him because he was like a stiff board somewhat, and he was easy pickings for Canelo. I think it would be the same way. Canelo right now seems to me to be picking guys that are bigger than he is, which means he's going to be quicker, and he can just mold them down. And that's what I'm seeing right now. It might be different if he fights Billy Joe Saunders or somebody else. But right now, that's, to me, it seems his approach. And his argument is, they're bigger than me. See, I'm really 147, 154, right. And I'm here fighting these guys. And it's like, well, look at what the little dude is going to these big dudes and these big guys. And that's kind of his rationale. And then, of course, his followers in the boxing world is like, well, maybe he has a point. Then he sits back and say, look how great I am. I'm making all the money. I won't fight any damn body.
Right. John, is there a chance? And I know we always say there's a chance, but is there really a chance?
If he hides a gun in his trunks or something and pulls it out, that's about the only chance he's got, I think. I mean, if he knocks Canelo out, of course, I'll Frank will be replaying this on Facebook over and over again to say, didn't you say? But no, I think it's funny. What really gives it away is when Canelo says what he said about Yelkin or whatever his name is. Oh no, he's a good fighter, and I expect a really competitive fight. When you're building up your opponent, that tells you that secretly you're thinking, oh, I'm going to destroy this guy with ease, and that's how. See, Canelo hasn't scored a knockout in a while. I expect him to stop him under 5. Yelkin will try hard, or whatever it's Yeltrin or whatever in the first round. He'll try, but Canelo will just pick him apart, start hitting him with body shots, and it'll be done under 5 rounds. And you know what? Real fast, the thing about Canelo that's frustrating is, see, I really legitimately think he is a damn good fighter. I do. He is a damn good fighter. But I agree with you too, Charles. He is but to get that butt out of there, he's got to fight the guys that we think could really give him a fight. You know, Billy Joe Saunders, fine. Caleb Plant, I don't think he's ready for Canelo. Charlo, definitely ready. And Benavidez, I think Benavidez would be tough, but I think Canelo would probably beat him. But Andre, that would be kind of tricky, style wise. So he's got to fight those guys to shut us up, and I wish he would do it.
Yeah, I wish he'd shut you up too. But but to clarify something,
that was me, Frank. That was me.
It's not just that we say they should fight him; he should fight them. It's that other people are saying that as well. And I'm just going to throw something out here. Okay, Yildirim, Lidrum, the Exatril, whatever his name is 21-2-0 with 12 knockouts. Now we're saying he probably has to knock him out to win. Maybe. His 2 losses are to Chris Eubank Jr., where he got blasted out in 3, and a technical decision against Anthony Durrell, which was a year and a half ago. There's only 2 losses against 2 good fighters. Okay, so that says something. However, His other wins, or his wins, are against people other than Glenn Johnson. I'm assuming it's that Glenn Johnson, who would have been 103 at that point.
At least.
Are guys that I don't know. Aaron Pryor Jr. might be that Aaron Pryor Jr., but even that I don't know. Okay.
It is. It's fun.
So they're guys against I don't know who they were, whether they're any good or not. He's got a shot. As Charles said, anybody gets in the ring has got a shot. He can land that one shot. Canelo could slip into a punch, whatever. It could happen. But this isn't one of those where I think we're going to come back next week and go, see, all 3/3 of you guys were wrong this time. So, I don't know. Anyhow.
Canelo will win.
Whatever we have to say about it, here's the key point of this entire exercise. We have boxing to watch. We have boxing to watch. Last week we had boxing on not one, two networks. Not one, two, though we didn't have to pay extra to see them. Well, you had to pay for Showtime, but still, if you have Showtime on your package, you didn't have to pay extra for it. And they showed a lot of fights. You got to see the Robert Easter Jr. fight. You got to see the Valen Dominic Brazil fight. You got to see AB. On the other side, you got to see things as well. It's a nice thing to have. So I think we're getting back to what we, again, of the 9 people that watch this show, apparently 3 of them work for boxing networks. So something is going right for the last 8 years. Yeah, people are paying attention to what we said the last 12 months. So it's looking good. And we've got our Charles Boy Chocolatito coming up in another few weeks. We've got a lot of stuff coming on. So I think we're set up pretty well. We just have to keep, as they say, keep punching. And on that bad pun, that should be the end of it. Thanks again, guys. And we will see you later.